The lights of Nexus Prime flickered in endless patterns across the massive trading station. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports every day. The air hummed with the sound of alien voices speaking in dozens of languages. This was the heart of galactic trade, where deals worth entire planets were made with a handshake or a claw shake. Minji walked through the crowded central hall with practiced ease. Her small frame moved between towering aliens without fear. She had worked here for 3 years as a translator for the Galactic Commerce Guild. The other species respected her skill with languages and her calm way of handling angry traders. Today felt different, though. 2 groups had been arguing for hours about a shipment of rare crystals. The Keth delegation claimed the crystals were damaged. The Zoran traders insisted they were perfect. Both sides were getting louder and more upset. Minji stood between them in the negotiation chamber. The room was built to hold many different types of beings. Some sat on chairs, others floated in the air, and a few stood on special platforms. The arguing voices echoed off the metal walls. "The crystals show clear signs of rough handling," said the lead Keth trader. His blue skin was turning darker with anger. "We demand a 50% reduction in price," the Zoran captain hissed through his sharp teeth. "Impossible. The crystals are grade A quality. Your scanners must be broken." Minji raised her hand for silence. Both groups turned to look at her. She spoke in the Keth language first, then switched to Zoran tongue. Her words were careful and respectful. "Perhaps we could examine the crystals together," she suggested. "A joint inspection might solve this problem." The Keth trader nodded slowly. The Zoran captain seemed to consider this idea. For a moment, Minji thought she had found a solution. Then, heavy footsteps shook the floor. Grimjaw entered the chamber like a storm. The Vorthak warrior stood over 7 feet tall. His thick scales were dark green with yellow stripes. Claws as long as fingers clicked against his belt. His small eyes burned with anger. "This is taking too long," Grimjaw growled. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "The Vorthak fleet is waiting for those crystals." Minji kept her voice steady. "I understand your concern. We are working to solve this quickly." Grimjaw stepped closer. His massive shadow fell over her small form. "You understand nothing, Softskin. Your kind should not be involved in real business." The other aliens in the room grew quiet. Everyone knew the Vorthak were dangerous. Their species had conquered 12 worlds through pure violence. They respected only strength and feared nothing. Minji did not step back. She had dealt with angry aliens before. "I am here to help all parties reach an agreement. The Galactic Commerce Guild appointed me to this position." "The guild made a mistake," Grimjaw snarled. He looked at the other traders. "How can you trust a creature that breaks if you touch it too hard?" The Keth trader shifted uncomfortably. The Zoran captain looked away. No one wanted to anger a Vorthak warrior. Minji felt the tension in the room growing. She needed to calm things down before someone got hurt. "Let us focus on the crystals. That is why we are all here." She turned to her datapad and began reading the inspection reports. Her voice was professional and calm. According to the shipping records, the crystals were packed in standard protective foam. The journey took 14 days through normal space routes. Grimjaw grabbed her shoulder with one massive claw. His grip was tight enough to bruise. "Are you ignoring me, human?" Minji looked up at him without fear. "I am doing my job. Please let go of me." The Vorthak warrior's eyes narrowed. In his culture, any challenge was an insult. Any insult demanded a response. "You dare give me orders?" "I am asking you to follow station rules," Minji said quietly. "Physical contact during negotiations is not allowed." Grimjaw's anger exploded like a bomb. "Rules? You speak to me of rules?" His voice rose to a roar that shook the walls. "I am a warrior of the Vorthak Empire. I follow no rules made by weak creatures." The other aliens began backing toward the exits. They could smell violence in the air like smoke before a fire. Minji stood her ground. "Please calm down. We can resolve this peacefully." "There is no peace with weakness," Grimjaw bellowed. He raised his clawed hand high above his head. The black talons caught the light like knives. Let me show you what happens to creatures who forget their place. His massive fist came down like a hammer. The blow caught Minji across the left side of her face. The force lifted her small body off the ground and sent her flying into the metal wall. She hit with a sound like breaking sticks and slumped to the floor. Blood ran from 3 deep cuts across her cheek. Her eyes rolled back in her head. She lay very still. The room fell silent except for Grimjaw's heavy breathing. The other aliens stared in shock. Attacking a guild translator was a serious crime. The penalties could include banishment from all trading stations, but no one moved to help her. Grimjaw looked around at the frozen faces. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Let this be a lesson. Soft creatures should know their place. They should not pretend to be equals. The Keth trader found his voice first. You have attacked a neutral diplomat. The guild will not forgive this. Grimjaw laughed. The sound was cold and cruel. The guild needs Vorthak trade more than they need one broken human. They will do nothing, Hideo. Stepped over Minji's still form like she was garbage. Clean up this mess. I want those crystals loaded on my ship within the hour. The Zoran captain spoke carefully. The negotiation is not finished. It is finished, Grimjaw said. The Vorthak will take the crystals at the original price. Anyone who objects can discuss it with my clause. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Without looking back, he spoke in a voice full of disgust. Humans are too weak for space. They should stay on their little world and leave real business to real species. The door slammed shut behind him. For several minutes, no one moved. Then, the Keith trader slowly approached Minji's body. He knelt down and checked for signs of life. She is breathing, he said quietly. But she needs medical help immediately. The Zoran captain was already calling for station security and medical teams, but they all knew the truth. Grimjaw was right about one thing. The Vorthak fleet was too valuable to lose over one human translator. As the medical team arrived and began treating Minji's wounds, word of the attack spread through the station like wildfire. In the bars and trading posts, aliens whispered about what they had witnessed. Some felt shame for not helping her. Others wondered if humans really were too weak for galactic society. But all of them agreed on one thing. Someone would have to tell her husband. The mining ship Starbreaker docked at Nexus Prime 3 days after the incident. Its hull was scarred from asteroid impacts and space debris. The cargo hold was full of precious metals that would feed the station's endless hunger for raw materials. Taman climbed out of the pilot seat and stretched his tired muscles. The mining run had taken 2 weeks. He was looking forward to seeing Minji and sharing a quiet meal in their small apartment. His wife always made the station feel like home. He walked through the docking bay toward the residential section. Other miners nodded to him as he passed. Taman was known as a hard worker who kept to himself. He never caused trouble and always delivered his cargo on time. The first sign something was wrong came from Jinhee, who ran the supply depot. She looked at him with sad eyes and opened her mouth to speak. Then she closed it again and turned away quickly. Taman felt a cold weight in his stomach. He walked faster. At the apartment building, the security guard Dongyun stepped in front of him. The older man's face was serious and worried. Taman, you need to go to the medical center first, Dongyun said quietly. What happened? Taman's voice was steady, but his hand moved to the knife on his belt. Old habits from his soldier days never died. There was an incident during a trade negotiation. Minji was hurt. She is alive, but... Dongyun struggled to find the right words. You should see her yourself. Taman did not ask more questions. He ran. The medical center was in the heart of the station. Clean white walls and bright lights made everything look cold and sterile. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. Taman had always hated hospitals. Dr. Hyunwoo met him at the entrance. The alien doctor had 4 arms and golden skin that changed color with his emotions. Right now he was showing deep purple, which meant sadness. Your wife is stable, Dr. Hyunwoo said immediately. Her injuries are healing well, but there was significant trauma to her face and head. Taman followed the doctor down a long hallway. Their footsteps echoed on the metal floor. What kind of trauma? Claw marks across her left cheek, a concussion from impact with the wall, some internal bruising. Dr. Hyunwoo stopped at a door and placed one hand on Taemin's shoulder. She was lucky. A few inches higher and the claws would have taken her eye. The room was small and dim. Machines beeped quietly in the corners. Minji lay in the center bed, with bandages covering half her face. Her breathing was slow and steady. Taemin pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. He took her hand in both of his. Her skin felt cold. She wakes up sometimes, Dr. Hyunwoo explained. But not for long. The concussion needs time to heal. Her body is fighting hard to recover. Who did this to her? The doctor's skin turned darker purple. A Vorthak warrior named Grimjaw. He was angry about delays in a trade negotiation. Your wife was trying to help both sides reach an agreement. Taemin's grip on Minji's hand tightened slightly. Where is he now? Still on the station. His ship is docked in Bay 7. Dr. Hyunwoo paused. Taemin, I know you are angry, but the Vorthak delegation has diplomatic protection. Station security cannot arrest him. What about guild law? She was working as a neutral translator. The Vorthak claim she provoked the attack through cultural insensitivity. They filed countercharges. Dr. Hyunwoo's four hands moved in a gesture of helplessness. The bureaucrats will argue about it for months. Taemin said nothing. He stared at his wife's bandaged face and felt something cold and hard growing in his chest. It was a feeling he had not experienced in years. Not since the war. Dr. Hyunwoo left them alone. The room fell quiet except for the soft beeping of medical machines and Minji's gentle breathing. Taemin had met his wife 4 years ago on a peaceful colony world. She was teaching alien children to speak human languages. He was trying to forget the things he had done during the border wars. They fell in love over long walks and quiet conversations about building a better future. Minji had never asked about his military service. She knew he had been a soldier, but not what kind of soldier. The sealed records in his file carried classifications that few people had clearance to read. Special operations, deep reconnaissance, counterinsurgency specialist. He had killed 43 people during the war. Each death was logged in his memory with perfect clarity. The faces, the circumstances, the methods used. He remembered them, all because forgetting would dishonor their lives. After the war ended, Taemin buried that part of himself. He became a miner, working alone in the cold silence of space. The solitude helped him find peace. Meeting Minji had completed his healing. Now someone had hurt the most important person in his world. Minji's eyes fluttered open. She looked around the room with confusion until she saw his face. Then she smiled weakly. You came back, she whispered. I will always come back to you. Taemin squeezed her hand gently. How do you feel? Like I was hit by a cargo hauler. She tried to laugh but winced from the pain. The Vorthak was very angry. I tried to calm him down, but he would not listen. Do not worry about that now. Focus on getting better. Minji studied his face with the careful attention she used for reading difficult aliens. You have that look in your eyes. The one from your old photographs. Taemin had shown her a few pictures from his military days. His younger self had worn the same expression in all of them. Cold, focused, and very dangerous. I am fine, he said. Promise me you will not do anything foolish. That, warrior, is not worth throwing your life away. Minji's voice was getting weaker as the medicine pulled her back towards sleep. Promise me, Taemin. He kissed her forehead above the bandages. I promise I will not throw my life away. It was not quite the same promise she had asked for, but Minji was already asleep again. Taemin sat with her until visiting hours ended. Then he walked slowly back through the station corridors. Other people moved out of his way without knowing why. Something in his posture and expression made them nervous. In their apartment, Taemin opened a sealed container he had not touched in years. Inside were his old military files, training manuals, and detailed studies of alien biology. Everything a soldier needed to know about killing different species efficiently. He pulled out a thick folder marked Vorthak Combat Analysis, and began to read. Outside his window, the lights of Nexus Prime twinkled like stars. Somewhere among those lights, Grimjaw was probably drinking and boasting about his victory over a weak human female. That was about to change. Taman spent the next 2 days learning everything he could about Vorthak warriors. He read medical files, cultural studies, and combat reports from the border wars. His old training came back like muscle memory. Know your enemy. Find their weaknesses. Plan your attack. The Vorthak were proud of their strength. Their thick scales could stop most small weapons. Their claws could tear through metal. They had conquered 12 worlds through pure violence and fear, but every species had vulnerabilities if you knew where to look. Taman made notes in a small book. Pressure points behind the knee joints, soft spots between scale plates, the way Vorthak balance shifted when they became angry. He drew diagrams and wrote down attack patterns. It felt like preparing for war again. During the day, he visited Minji in the medical center. She was getting stronger, but the doctors wanted to keep her for observation. The cuts on her face were healing into thin scars. She would carry the marks of Grimjaw's attack for the rest of her life. "You look tired," Minji said on the 3rd day. She was sitting up in bed and eating solid food again. "Are you sleeping enough?" "I sleep fine." Taman smoothed her hair away from the bandages. "How is the pain today?" "Better. Dr. Hyunwoo says I can go home tomorrow." She caught his hand and studied his fingers. They were stained with ink from his note-taking. "What have you been writing?" "Work reports, mining schedules." The lie came easily. Taman had learned to lie during the war when captured soldiers asked him questions. Nothing important. Minji did not look convinced, but she did not push. She knew her husband had secrets from his past. Everyone who survived the border wars carried darkness inside them. "The station security chief came by yesterday," she said quietly. "Wu Jin wanted to ask me questions about the attack." "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That Grimjaw was angry about delays and took his frustration out on me." Minji's voice became bitter. "Wu Jin said his hands are tied. The Vorthak delegation threatens to leave the station if anyone bothers their people. And the guild? They care more about trade profits than justice for one translator." Minji looked out the window at the busy docking bays. "Sometimes I wonder if we made the right choice coming out here. Maybe humans are not meant for this life." Taman felt anger burn in his chest like acid. "Do not let one animal make you doubt yourself. You are the best translator on this station. Everyone knows that." "Even the ones who watched him attack me and did nothing to help?" That was a question Taman could not answer. He had seen the security footage through a contact in the system. Dozens of aliens had witnessed the attack. None of them tried to stop it. They just stood there while a human woman was brutalized in front of them. After visiting hours ended, Taman walked through the station's entertainment district. Bright. Neon signs advertised bars, gambling halls, and pleasure houses for every species. The air smelled like exotic foods and alien alcohol. The Vorthak warriors had claimed the largest bar for themselves. The Razor's Edge was known for strong drinks and violent fights, perfect for a species that measured worth through physical dominance. Taman stood across the street and watched through the windows. He could see Grimjaw at the center of a group of his people. The massive warrior was telling a story with grand gestures. The other Vorthak were laughing and pounding the table. A Keth trader walked past Taman on the sidewalk. The blue-skinned alien was muttering angrily to himself. "Problem?" Taman asked quietly. The Keth looked up in surprise. "Oh, you are the human woman's mate. I heard about what happened. Very sorry for your loss." "She is not dead." "No, of course. Not, I meant..." The Keth struggled to find the right words. "That warrior in there has been boasting about his attack for days. He says it proves humans are too weak for galactic society." Taman looked back at the bar windows. "What exactly does he say?" "Terrible things. That your wife begged for mercy. That she cried like a child. That all humans would run from a real fight." The Keth's skin darkened with anger. "He makes jokes about finishing what he started." "I see. The Keth trader studied Taman's calm expression. You do not seem upset by this news. I am very upset, Taman said quietly. I just do not show it the same way others do. Inside the bar, Grimjaw stood on a table and raised his drink high. His booming voice carried through the windows to the street. To the lesson I taught that soft-skinned female, he roared. May all humans learn to know their place. The other Vorthak cheered and drank deeply. Some of them made crude gestures and laughed at their own jokes. They were having the time of their lives. Taman watched for another hour. He learned Grimjaw's habits, his drinking patterns, the way he moved when intoxicated. The warrior was careless and overconfident. He thought himself untouchable. That would be his first mistake. The next day brought news that made everything worse. Chief Wu Jin came to see Taman at the mining docks. The security officer looked tired and frustrated. The Vorthak delegation filed an official complaint, Wu Jin said. They claim your wife used offensive language during the negotiation, cultural insults that demanded a physical response under their law. That is impossible. Minji speaks perfect Vorthak. She would never insult their culture. I know that, you know that. But their version of events is different. Wu Jin rubbed his forehead. They want her charged with deliberate provocation and banned from all future negotiations. Taman felt his control slipping. They attack my wife and then try to destroy her career? The station council is meeting tomorrow to discuss the matter. Political pressure is building to accept the Vorthak version of events. Wu Jin looked around to make sure no one was listening. Between you and me, the council is scared. The Vorthak fleet could blockade this station if they wanted. We cannot afford to lose their business. So justice means nothing? Justice is expensive. Trade profits are not. Wu Jin's voice was bitter. I have been a security officer for 20 years. I have seen this happen before. The strong prey on the weak and the bureaucrats make excuses. After Wu Jin left, Taman returned to his apartment and opened his old files again. He found what he was looking for in a report about Vorthak's social structure. Their culture was built on personal honor and combat reputation. A warrior who lost a fight in public would be shamed for life. More importantly, Vorthak law allowed for trial by combat in cases of personal grievance. If Taman challenged Grimjaw directly, the warrior would have to accept or lose face in front of his people. It was a legal loophole that the station council could not ignore. Taman made his decision that night while sitting beside Minji's hospital bed. She was sleeping peacefully, her face turned away from the bandages. In the dim light, she looked young and vulnerable. He had tried to leave his violent past behind. He had built a quiet life mining asteroids and loving his wife. But some people only understood one language. Grimjaw had chosen to speak that language when he attacked an innocent woman. Now Taman would answer in the same tongue. Outside the medical center, the lights of Nexus Prime glittered like a field of stars. Somewhere in that maze of corridors and chambers, a Vorthak warrior was drinking and laughing about the human female he had broken. Tomorrow, that laughter would stop. The central plaza of Nexus Prime buzzed with afternoon activity. Traders from dozens of worlds gathered around the information boards to check shipping schedules and commodity prices. The large open space echoed with voices speaking in every language known to the galaxy. Taman walked through the crowd with steady steps. He wore simple work clothes and carried no visible weapons. To most observers, he looked like just another human miner going about his business. They could not see the coiled tension in his muscles or the cold calculation in his eyes. Grimjaw stood near the central fountain with 3 other Vorthak warriors. The massive alien was louder than usual, telling another story about his conquest of the weak human female. His audience laughed at the crude details he added to make the tale more entertaining. She squeaked like a frightened rodent when my claws touched her face, Grimjaw boasted. His voice carried across the plaza. I should have finished the lesson properly. Other aliens nearby heard the comments and moved away quietly. No one wanted to be associated with such ugly talk, but no one was willing to confront a Vorthak warrior either. Taman approached the group slowly. Conversations around the plaza began to die down as people noticed the small human walking toward the towering predators. The air grew thick with Tension. Grimjaw of the Vorthak Empire. Taman called out in clear, carrying voice. I would speak with you. The plaza fell silent. Every eye turned toward the confrontation brewing at its heart. Grimjaw looked down at the approaching human, with amusement and contempt. Look what crawls from the shadows, Grimjaw rumbled. The mate of the broken female comes to whine for justice. He looked around at the gathering crowd. What can you possibly want from me, Softskin? Taman stopped 10 feet away from the Vorthak group. The distance was carefully calculated, close enough to be heard clearly, far enough to react if they rushed him. You attacked my wife during a diplomatic negotiation, Taman said calmly. Under Vorthak law, this gives me the right to challenge you for personal grievance. I invoke trial by combat. The plaza erupted in surprised murmurs. Trial by combat was an ancient Vorthak tradition that few outsiders knew about. It had not been invoked by a non-Vorthak in over 50 years. Grimjaw's eyes narrowed. The human had trapped him with his own people's laws. Refusing the challenge would be seen as cowardice by every Vorthak in the galaxy. But accepting meant fighting a creature he had already dismissed as weak and worthless. You would face me in combat? Grimjaw laughed and spread his arms wide. Look at yourself, human. You are half my size and have no natural weapons. This will not be a fight. It will be an execution. Then you accept the challenge? Grimjaw glanced at his fellow warriors. They were watching him carefully, waiting to see how he would handle this unexpected situation. His reputation was at stake in front of his own people. I accept, he growled. When you are dead, I will visit your mate in the medical center. Perhaps I will finish what I started with her as well. Taman's expression did not change, but something shifted behind his eyes. The last traces of the peaceful miner disappeared, replaced by something much older and more dangerous. Clear the center, someone shouted from the crowd. Give them space. The circle of watchers expanded rapidly. Aliens pushed and shoved to get better views of the coming fight. Word spread through the station's communication network at light speed. Within minutes, thousands of beings were watching through security cameras or heading toward the plaza. Grimjaw cracked his knuckles and rolled his massive shoulders. His claws extended to their full length, gleaming like black knives in the artificial light. Any last words, human? Just one piece of advice, Taman replied quietly. You should have left my wife alone. Grimjaw charged with a roar that shook the plaza walls. His massive frame moved with surprising speed for something so large. Claws aimed for Taman's throat, intending to end the fight with a single devastating strike. Taman was not there when the claws arrived. The human moved like flowing water, sliding aside from the attack with minimal effort. As Grimjaw's momentum carried him past, Taman struck twice. Quick, precise blows to nerve clusters just behind the Vorthak's knee joints. Grimjaw stumbled and nearly fell. His legs had gone numb from the knees down. He spun around in confusion, trying to understand what had happened. Impossible, he snarled. No creature moves that fast. Taman circled slowly, staying just out of reach. You know nothing about my species. We are not as weak as you believe. Grimjaw charged again, this time swinging his claws in wide arcs to cover more area. But his legs were still partially numb, making his movements clumsy and predictable. Taman ducked under the wild swings and struck again. This time his targets were pressure points along Grimjaw's ribs. The Vorthak's scales provided no protection against attacks that targeted nerve clusters and blood flow. Grimjaw's left arm went limp. He stared at it in shock, unable to understand how a creature with no claws or fangs could disable his natural weapons. The crowd pressed closer, sensing that something extraordinary was happening. This was not the quick execution they had expected. The small human was systematically dismantling one of the galaxy's most feared predators. What are you? Grimjaw gasped. Pain was spreading through his body like fire. Every breath hurt. His vision was starting to blur. I am someone who loves his wife, Taman replied. And you hurt her. The next series of strikes came too fast for most watchers to follow. Taman moved with the fluid precision of a trained killer. hitting targets that would cause maximum pain while avoiding permanent damage. Each blow was calculated to weaken and disorient without providing the mercy of unconsciousness. Grimjaw tried to fight back, but his body was no longer obeying his commands. His right arm hung useless at his side. His legs could barely support his weight. The proud warrior who had terrorized peaceful traders was being reduced to a helpless victim. "Please," Grimjaw whispered. The word was barely audible above his labored breathing. "I yield. The combat is over." Taman stopped moving. He stood perfectly still while Grimjaw swayed on unsteady legs. The plaza was silent except for the Vorthak's ragged breathing and the hum of recording devices. "You yield?" Taman asked quietly. "Yes, I yield. You have won." Grimjaw's voice was thick with pain and humiliation. "Spare my life." Taman walked closer until he was standing directly in front of the defeated warrior. Grimjaw was still taller even on his knees, but somehow he seemed much smaller than before. "In human culture," Taman said in a voice that carried to every corner of the plaza, "when someone hurts our family, they have chosen to die. This is our law. This is our way." Grimjaw's eyes widened with terror. Around the plaza, aliens held their breath and waited to see if the human would execute his defeated opponent. Taman leaned closer and spoke directly into Grimjaw's ear. His words were too quiet for the crowd to hear, but they made the Vorthak warrior flinch as if struck. "I am giving you one chance to make this right," Taman continued in his normal voice. "One chance to prove that Vorthak honor means something, more than bullying the innocent. Do not waste it." He turned and walked away without looking back. The circle of watchers parted before him like water. No one tried to stop him or ask questions. The aura of controlled violence around him was too strong. Behind him, Grimjaw collapsed to the plaza floor and wept openly. The sound echoed off the walls like the cry of a broken animal. The lesson had been delivered. Now the galaxy would learn what it meant to anger a human's mate. The news of Grimjaw's defeat spread through Nexus Prime like wildfire. Within hours, every alien on the station had heard some version of the story. The details changed with each telling, but the core message remained the same. A human had brought one of the galaxy's most feared warriors to his knees using nothing but skill and determination. In the medical center, Minji watched the security footage on her room's display screen. Her husband moved through the fight like a dancer, precise and deadly. She had never seen him fight before, but she recognized the cold professionalism in his movements. This was what he had been during the war. "You should be proud of him," Dr. Hyunwoo said from the doorway. His golden skin showed colors of respect and admiration. "I have never seen anyone defeat a Vorthak warrior in single combat." "I am proud," Minji replied quietly. "But I am also worried. Taman tried so hard to leave that life behind. I hope this does not awaken old demons." From what I saw on the recording, he showed remarkable restraint. He could have killed Grimjaw easily, but chose mercy instead. Minji nodded, but her expression remained troubled. She knew her husband better than anyone. The gentle man who brought her flowers and talked about retiring to a peaceful world was still there. But the soldier who had fought in humanity's bloodiest conflicts was also still there, waiting beneath the surface. The door chimed and Taman entered carrying a small bouquet of earth flowers. He had found them at the station's botanical gardens where plants from 1,000 worlds grew under artificial suns. "How are you feeling today?" he asked, settling into his usual chair beside the bed. "Better. Dr. Hyunwoo says I can go home tomorrow." Minji took his hand and squeezed gently. "I saw the footage of your fight." Taman's face showed no emotion. "I did what needed to be done. Did you? Or did you do what the old Taman would have done?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring at their joined hands. "Perhaps there is no difference. Perhaps that part of me never really went away. The important thing is that you chose to show mercy when you could have chosen revenge." "I wanted to kill him," Taman admitted. "Standing there, looking at what he had done to you, I wanted to tear him apart with my bare hands. But you did not." "No, I did not." He looked up at her with eyes that held old pain. I remembered what you said about not throwing my life away. Killing him would have brought the entire Vorthak fleet down on this station. Innocent people would have died for my anger. Minji smiled and touched his face with her free hand. That is the difference between a soldier and a killer. A soldier knows when to stop. 3 hours later, Grimjaw appeared at the medical center. The proud warrior who had terrorized the station was gone, replaced by a broken figure who could barely stand upright. His scales were dull with shame and his head hung low. Dr. Hyunwoo tried to bar his way, but Minji called out from her room. "Let him come in. I want to hear what he has to say." Grimjaw shuffled to the doorway and stopped. He could not bring himself to look directly at the woman he had attacked. His voice was hoarse and barely audible. "I have come to offer formal apology, according to Vorthak tradition," he said. "My actions brought dishonor to my people and suffering to an innocent diplomat. I accept full responsibility for my crimes." He placed a small metal case on the table beside Minji's bed. "This contains compensation for your medical expenses and pain. It also includes a formal letter of apology to the Galactic Commerce Guild, accepting blame for the incident and clearing your record of any wrongdoing." Minji opened the case and found more credits than she would earn in 5 years of translation work. The letter was written in perfect galactic standard and sealed with Grimjaw's personal mark. "This is very generous," she said carefully. "But why now? What changed your mind?" Grimjaw finally looked up at her face. The bandages were gone, revealing 3 thin scars across her left cheek. They would fade with time but never disappear completely. "Your mate showed me what real strength looks like," he said quietly. "I thought power came from making others fear you. He taught me that true power comes from protecting those you love. And your people? Will they accept this apology? Some will. Others will call me weak for backing down from a human." Grimjaw's voice grew firmer. "I no longer care what they think. Honor is not about being the strongest fighter. It is about doing what is right." After Grimjaw left, Taemin and Minji sat together in comfortable silence. The crisis was over, but they both knew that life on Nexus Prime would never be quite the same. "The other aliens look at you differently now," Minji observed. "They step aside when you walk past. They speak to you with respect. Fear is not the same as respect. No, but it is a beginning. For too long, humans have been seen as weak because we prefer diplomacy to violence. You reminded them that we are capable of both." Over the following weeks, the change in attitude became more pronounced. Human traders found themselves getting better deals and more favorable treatment. The insults and casual dismissal that had been common before were replaced by cautious politeness. The story of Grimjaw's defeat spread beyond Nexus Prime to other trading stations and colonies. Each telling added new details, but the core message remained consistent. Humans were not the helpless weaklings that many species believed them to be. "Never anger a human's mate" became a common saying among traders and diplomats. It was usually said with a mixture of respect and nervous laughter, but it was said nonetheless. Taemin returned to his mining work, but the other miners treated him with new deference. They had seen the security footage and understood that their quiet colleague was far more dangerous than he appeared. Some of them tried to ask about his military service, but he deflected their questions with polite silence. The Vorthak delegation left the station a week after the incident. They took their trade contracts and their wounded pride to other markets. Word reached Nexus Prime months later that Grimjaw had been stripped of his warrior status and assigned to diplomatic training. His people had decided that learning restraint might be more valuable than learning to fight. Minji recovered fully from her injuries and returned to her work as a translator. The scars on her face served as a reminder of the attack, but they also became a symbol of human resilience. Other diplomats began requesting her specifically for difficult negotiations, knowing that she had faced violence and survived. "Do you ever regret what happened?" she asked Taemin one evening as they walked through the station's observation deck. Through the transparent walls, they could see the stars wheeling slowly past. "I regret that you were hurt," he replied. "I regret that it took violence to earn respect for our people, but I do not regret defending you." "Good. because I would do the same for you if our positions were reversed." They stood together at the railing, watching ships arrive and depart from the busy docking bays. The galaxy was still a dangerous place for humans, but it was slightly less dangerous than it had been before. Sometimes that was the best you could hope for. In the months that followed, more human families began arriving at Nexus Prime. Word had spread that it was a place where their species was treated with respect rather than contempt. The human population grew from a handful of individuals to a thriving community. Taman and Minji eventually retired to a quiet colony world as they had always planned, but their legacy remained on the station in the form of increased human presence and improved relations between species. The lesson they had taught was simple but profound. Humans might prefer peace, but they were perfectly capable of war. They might choose diplomacy, but they would fight when cornered. Most importantly, they would do anything to protect the people they loved. It was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.